Beast Wars. The Beast Wars line of toys was a smashing success back in the 90s. You know, up until it suddenly wasn't. Still, it's a line of toys that a lot of people have fond memories of, myself included. I used to get so much of a dopamine hit off of these things that still, to this very day, I sometimes have dreams where I find Beast Wars figures at a local supermarket or something. And you thought you had problems. Anyway, fast forward to the 2020s, and that dream was made a reality when Hasbro released the Beast Wars Vintage line. Completely authentic recreations of classic Beast Wars toys sold pretty much only at Walmart because Hasbro is apparently still in a committed relationship with them. They don't have Walmarts on my side of the planet. The point is, I am exactly the target audience for any kind of Beast Wars related release. But even I, when looking at Beast Wars Vintage, was kind of like... And consumers seem to agree because a lot of these toys ended up hitting the bargain bin, and Hasbro only ever made about 10 molds in this line, not counting a couple repaints, of course. So, what happened? How did Beast Wars, which should have been a slam dunk for nostalgia, fall so short of the mark? That's what I plan to explore today. So let's find out what killed the proverbial dinosaurs, shall we? Well, first of all, the idea of making an entire Beast Wars Vintage line, while it sounds good on paper, was actually flawed from the very beginning. And it's because of a little thing called supply and demand. Look, the fact is, you can make as much of something as you like, but at the end of the day, if no one wants it, they ain't gonna buy it. And Hasbro learned this the hard way when they started trying to sell Beast Wars figures to an audience that wasn't exactly asking for it. To put this in context, Hasbro and Takara were hot off of the success of the Transformers G1 Vintage line, which brought back the original G1 toys and was considered to be a real hit. And if that sort of thing could work for G1, well, hey, why not for Beast Wars? Well, for one, this line of thinking completely ignores the reason why the G1 Vintage line was so successful in the first place. See, the original G1 toys were from an era where a lot of people just didn't take good care of their toys. Not to mention that a lot of these things were prone to breakage, had heavy use of stickers rather than paint, and lots of small, easily losable parts. So the prospect of getting a fresh re-release of these toys that could now be cared for properly and last much longer was an exciting idea for collectors. But Beast Wars is an entirely different matter. For one, the plastic was generally very sturdy, with some notable exceptions. The figures used paint rather than stickers, and the use of ball joints meant that those joints were less prone to breakage than some of the swivels and hinges of the G1 toys. Overall, the original Beast Wars toys were generally better constructed than their G1 counterparts, die-cast be damned.
It's a lost art.
And thus when it came to the vintage line, a lot of collectors had to ask themselves why they should pay double, triple, even quadruple the price that these figures cost back in the 90s when they could still find the originals floating around online for much less. I already mentioned that in the Beast Wars Vintage line, only about 10 molds were ever released. Of these, most of the toys released were of the fan-favorite main characters from the Mainframe animated TV show. We're talking guys like Optimus Primal, Cheetor, Rat Trap, Megatron, and Retrax for some reason.
By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Using popular time-tested characters certainly sounds like a good idea, but in this case was actually one of the worst things Hasbro could possibly have done. You see, because these were main cast members, that means there were a lot more of their toys produced back in the day in order to meet demand. As a result, they became much more common than some of the less popular characters, which might have had a more limited run. So when these vintage releases finally hit the market, it added up to shelves upon shelves of unsold and unwanted toys, and an entire line that seemed to lack purpose and direction. So what could Hasbro have done differently, and in fact, what could they still do differently? Well, the first thing to do would be to throw Retrax into the deepest, darkest corner of the ocean where no one would ever find it. But after that, Hasbro could have given us improved versions of these characters rather than just a straight repackaging. I think that had they chosen to update these characters with new, more show-accurate paint, similar to what Takara did with the Teremocha line, then it might have generated some more buzz. Incidentally, this is exactly what they did with vintage Scorponok, so I'm not sure why they would just stop there. Another option would have been to just give us re-releases of some figures that are a little bit harder to find. Razor Beast, Armadillo, Snapper, these are all good candidates. Or how about the Optimus Primal Bat and the Megatron Alligator? Alternatively, there are a slew of Japanese exclusive Beast Wars figures that I'm sure American fans would like to see have a domestic release. Or how about re-releasing some of the toys that were affected by gold plastic syndrome over the years, such as Fuser's Torka, Mutant Soundwave, and...
That's the gold plastic syndrome.
They could call it Beast Wars. We're very, very sorry. Going back to the repaint idea, another option could have been to just give us the same molds, but with new and interesting never-before-seen decos. I'm talking crazy color schemes for each and every character. Tigatron, done in orange, like the unreleased prototype. A Tarantulas done in transparent orange, also like the prototype. Rhinox in his dark design colors. Rat Trap in Beast Machine's green. A gray dinosaur Megatron so he more closely resembles his G1 namesake. Something. Anything. Just give us something to be excited about here. But of course, Hasbro is not likely to do any of these things. At the end of the day, corporations are risk-adverse, meaning they're not likely to do anything unless they're absolutely sure they can make some money off of it. And the failure of Beast Wars Vintage has probably taught them the exact wrong lesson. That classic Beast Wars is just not going to be profitable. While, no, actually it can be profitable, you just have to go about it the right way. And it's just a real shame that we won't be seeing any more re-releases anytime soon. Because this was a series that really meant a lot to me, and it's a little bit sad to see them lost to time in this way. But don't you worry, my friend. Now, you can look forward to Beast Machines Vintage.